Nicole Kidman is here. She is one of the world's most talented actors. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress in 2003. Also here, Jonathan Glazer. He is the director of the tightly wound British gangster film Sexy Beast, the follow-up to that success, a mysterious story about love. It is called Birth, and here's the trailer for the film. I am pleased to have the director and the star join us here this evening. Welcome. Great to see you. Hello. And you. Tell me why you sought this character to play Anna in this film. You sought it out as something that
Well, I sort of sought it out. There has been. I was actually sent the script, but and I thought that Jonathan, by a person who was sort of a middleman at that stage, we won't say who that was, and I thought that Jonathan was interested in me for it. But then, anyway, eventually we ended up at lunch, and when I read it, I just went, I would love to meet with him and talk about it, because I want to tell him how I feel in terms of the character, and I just found it incredibly compelling and intriguing.
Okay, well, tell me why. I mean, what was it you wanted to tell him about how this resonated with you?
The way in which the power of the love that this woman has for this man.
For her deceased husband.
Yeah, yeah, and the way that that has sort of still captured her, and she's not free, and then how it. I think that was the initial sort of response, not the thing about a reincarnation story or anything like that. It was primarily to do with, you know, he was trying to make a film about love.
That's true for you, I assume. I mean, it wasn't. Reincarnation just gives you a means of getting at a story.
Yeah, it did really. I didn't. I wasn't that interested in making a paranormal film really with this material. And as Nicole says, it was a conduit for this love story, really.
And it's about the power of love and how it can keep you and possess you and in a sense.
What do you want me to say? Destroy?
No, I was just saying, tell me. But drive you to the point where you will accept things that you might not otherwise.
Yeah, I think so. I think in the film, Nicole's character is her whole. You get a sense that she was always waiting for this to happen. The boys, when we see the boy at the beginning of the film, we see him
waiting for what?
I think waiting for this love to come back.
Oh, I see. Waiting to understand why she couldn't let it go, or something that'll help her let it go.
It's pretty hard to distill. I think you know, the first time we meet her, she's saying goodbye to her husband in a cemetery, right. And she really spends the whole film saying goodbye. She never really leaves that cemetery in my head, in a funny way.
Is there a moment in which we should believe the character, Anna, is prepared to accept this young boy who comes to her and says, inside of me is Sean, your deceased husband? I mean, is there a moment, is it in the concert scene, for example, where the camera lingers on you and you see
After she sees him collapse, it's that then is the turning point of, and I think in a weird way she knows how it's all going to play out in a strange way. There's times in your life when you cannot stop yourself doing something, even though you may know that it's the worst thing to do. You can almost see what is ahead. Yet, and I mean, there's the scene where I actually say, if it was going to happen again, it would still happen. Because I wasn't in control. I'm not in control, and I can't promise you that I would never do that again. It wouldn't. And that's what I think is fascinating. I think it disturbs people. I think most people have had a love that is that powerful in their life, or tapped into it to some extent, which is why I think it sort of speaks on a very broad level.
If you haven't had it, you should.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. Those people who felt passionate love.
Though. It's a frightening experience, because at the same time, you are out of control. And so you're very in the power of somebody else and at the mercy of somebody else.
There was an I just read this story about Michael Frayn, the playwright. It was in the New Yorker, and he talks about, in fact, his real life. leaving his wife for a woman that he married in London. This is real life. And he talks about just this idea, is it to know that you are possessed by the power of a love, that it becomes so overwhelming, and that it sort of controls your life in a dramatic way.
And you're so susceptible to, I mean, that's why when he does arrive, this 10-year-old boy, and says, I'm your husband and I've come back for you. She of course she's going to believe it.
The conceit.
And everybody else can say, no, no, no. It's the same thing, you sort of nod and continue to do what you're going to do.
Yeah, it's sort of the flip side of people who don't want to believe that somebody's bad. You know, and they constantly find themselves enthralled by someone who's not good for them, and they can't let go, even though everybody tells them. Take a look at this clip. This is where you were trying to tell your dead husband's brother about this young boy who's entered your life. The film is Birth. Here is the clip. What is it about actors that they don't want to watch themselves? Is it a monitor like this? Or do you feel the same way in a theater?
No, you're exposed. You're very, very exposed. And you're sort of, you're skinless. You're sitting there saying, this is me, here I am. I mean, that's how I work. So it's not like I'm sort of shifting. I'm using the things that make me up. And so, anyway.
But you feel exposed in...
Yeah. Yeah, I feel very exposed in this role. I sat at the Venice Film Festival in a dark theatre and watched it. I'm incredibly proud of it, and I'm so glad that Jonathan and I came together to make it, because it's something that I really wanted to put into the world. So I'm very glad to have had that.
I'm going to ask him something similar, but it is interesting about you in terms of if you look at the kinds of things you do, you see someone that's making choices based on what?
I have no idea.
But it's not based on commercial success. I mean, if you sit down and make a movie with, say, Sidney Pollack and Sean Penn about drama and intrigue at the UN, that's one kind of movie. Dogville and this is a different kind of movie. And you want to do both.
Yeah, it's not even a conscious decision in terms of, oh, I'm going to do something big, something small. It's more just I respond so much to a director, a person. I mean, in the way that I responded to, I knew Jonathan had written this, and so that's the thing that makes me go, oh, there's a reason why I'm sort of sitting here today, and I'm talking to him. This was during the lunch that we had, and there's a reason we're going to make this film together, and I kind of knew we were going to make it together.
Yeah, before the lunch you knew, and then after lunch you were sure.
Of,
yeah. Really?
Yeah,
well,
which is strange.
During
like 10 minutes into it.
You said, I'm in? Did you say I'm in?
I was just like, listen, whatever you need, whatever you want.
It must be a magical moment when Nicole is sitting across saying, whatever you want, whatever you need, I'm here.
But I believe that that's sort of what you have to do as an actor, with, and then what you bring. And what was interesting is the way in which Jonathan and Milo, who was writing it with Jonathan at that particular time, started to shape it on the weekends. It started to take on, I mean, the original script then sort of moved into something else, which I suppose you would talk about more, but it was an extraordinary experience for me. It was an unusual experience, and it was very, it was very satiating at the same time as being painful. It was also, I'm so glad.
Why painful?
Because you're telling things about yourself, you're showing things about yourself, you're...
There's nowhere to hide in that.
No, and you have to be really brave, and you have to trust somebody, so... And that's not the easiest thing to do
it's a little bit
in
like,
any situation.
After Sexy Beast, what kind of story did you want to tell? I mean, was there a kind of movie you wanted to make? I mean, this is your second feature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wanted to make this.
And of course you did, but why this? I mean, why coming after?
I mean, well, actually, the idea for this kind of I had the idea for this while we were making Sexy Beast, and it stuck in my head. I just couldn't get rid of it. I couldn't shift it, and it seemed like a very fertile idea to me. So it just sort of overtook the other project that I was going to do after Sexy Beast, which I sort of then pushed down the line, because I just felt like this is the time to make this film.
You had a sterling reputation making commercials and other kinds of things. Right. What does that do for you as a movie maker? How does it influence the kind of filmmaker you become?
Well, it definitely influences the filmmaker you become. It doesn't, I don't know how yet, it's too early to tell for me, but I mean, it definitely, you know, you bring all the good and bad habits across from those mediums.
Yeah.
I think for me, the job is the same in terms of, if you're doing a short form piece, you know, and you look at it and you think of it as almost as a sentence of prose, and that sentence is something which you need to fulfill dramatically, cinematically. You've got to, and that sentence needs to fold in on itself. It needs to be a complete sentence. Yeah. And then, obviously, when I do a long form film, I'm dealing with a longer piece, but equally it has to be complete and has to fold in on itself. So, even though you use different things, different techniques or whatever, or ways of telling the story, for me the process is similar. But in terms of really, you know, like I said, I think it's too early for me. I find it very hard to be objective about anything I do really for a few years. So I'll be able to. It'd be easier for me to talk about Sexy Beast now. I could tell you what that's about.
Before I show this clip, both of you tell me about this young man, Cameron Bright, who's 10. I don't know how old he is, but the character's 10.
He was 9 when we started filming. Yeah. The character's 10.
Yeah. I mean, this is an amazing role for someone that young to be, because he has to carry off the fact that there's an adult within him. Yes.
That's it. That's his job. And he has to. I told him right up front that he was the only. He had to tell the truth. That's all he had to do was tell the truth. Nobody in the film really was going to believe what he was saying, but he had to know that what he was saying was the truth. And he said, okay.
Because if he didn't know it, then they would never believe it.
That's right. And everything, and it all has to impact on Nicole's character. You know, we're looking at the conviction Nicole has in the film, and that has to be based on what he claims. So, as an actor, the little boy Cameron, he couldn't fault. He couldn't falter, because then the conceit would be exposed. You know, the spell would be broken. In other words, everything he said had to be believable, and the way he said it had to be believable. So that's a big task for a 10-year-old child.
And your task, before we'll see this clipping with you and Lauren Bacall, there's tension between you and your mother, played by Lauren Bacall. What's the tension?
That she wants to control my life. That she knows what's right for me. I think that sort of can be a very common thing between mothers and daughters.
But my sense of you is that you're in an enormously liberated place in your own life now. I mean, being where you are and having been appreciated in your craft and all of that, and as well as personal evolution.
It's a strange place to be in my life at the moment. I feel like I'm floating. I feel like, I don't feel like I've actually settled into where I'm going in a strange way. I do feel like I'm floating, and in a weird sense, a director comes along and sort of catches you for a little moment and takes something from you, and then you float again. So now I sound completely crazy.
She sounds like somebody who makes perfect sense to me. But it also sounds like somebody who could play this part. Roll tape. This is a scene with Lauren Bacall in which they, again, are talking about this phenomenon of a young boy who comes and says, I am your dead husband.
I'm sure.
What's interesting when you watch all of this, it is that there's so much conversation. I mean, this is really a film about conversation, right?
I think so, although there's very little dialogue overall, and I find.
So there is therefore what?
I think there's an enormous amount of subtext going on. There's a lot of silent conversation happening.
Yeah.
But I think the dialogue is fairly minimal in the film. I mean, there are moments where you have, like in the monologue in the scene we saw before, where Nicole is quite in that scene. She's sort of, even though she's telling us what we've already seen, so the scene's kind of going backwards, but the emotion's referring forwards, if you see what I mean. So it's never, we're just working, I don't think, on one level, I hope.
What did you do to get ready for this, if anything, other than look at the script and say, I know this character, and this character interests me?
It was more about just stepping into a place where I was willing to allow Jonathan into my mind, I suppose, at times. And that was it. It wasn't so. There wasn't anything technical. I mean, it was more about just saying, okay, I'm going to let you in
and take this journey.
Mm-hmm.
When it's over, when they finish the filming, and you don't have to come back until it's time to take a look at the finished product and talk about promoting it, do you let go immediately, or does it linger?
Different experiences with different films. With this film, it still lingers. There's other times I've made films I've got physically ill after it. There's other times I've sort of walked away and gone, oh, thank God that's over.
You want to tell us which is which?
Brutally honest, no. But with something like this, no, it sort of certainly has, it stays with me, it sits with me, it always will.
Because love is central to your life and my life and Jonathan's life. There is the scene that came up, I guess, at the Venice Film Festival, about the fact that there's two scenes. One is the bath scene.
Yeah.
What happened? What was the reaction, and how did this controversy develop? It is the notion of this 10-year-old boy in a bathroom scene, which, as I understand, was filmed at separate times, etc. So you explain to me.
I mean, it was, I think, there's a scene where the boy gets in the bath with Nicole's character.
Right.
And we knew, obviously, that it was a sharp end of the film, in a sense. When we shot it, we knew that it was a risky scene.
And necessary. You had to make that decision.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't have been in there had it not been necessary. Right. I wouldn't have asked them to do it. It wouldn't.
Necessary because?
Because it's the razor's edge of the piece in a way, because it's where we watch Nicole's character deciding or being confronted with the fantasy and the reality of this child.
The fantasy being he may be Sean.
Right.
The reality is a 10-year-old kid.
Is that he may not be. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was trying, and also
And also, I think how out of control she is. I mean, I think that's what sort of is shocking, because it's not about get out of the bathtub, pull yourself together. What are you doing? Which you would do at any other time, but you really see the intensity and the power of it.
I was actually going to say intensity, but it's even more the out of control. I mean, it's just beyond her ability to move out.
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, it's obviously not sexual. I mean, it is so, I mean, in a strange way, very pure. So
pure because?
Well, because she so wants to believe and is so willing to believe. I mean, there's nothing else. The kiss is incredibly pure. That's why my eyes stay open. It's like I want to experience this. I'm so, the power of it, the sensation of it, everything. It's the most glorious sensation and the most terrifying sensation at the same time. Because it means I have to go to everybody. I mean, you then have the scenes where my whole family is sort of, it's almost like to an addict, we're going to take you to get you off the stuff. And she's like, no, absolutely not.
What's also intriguing to me, because you don't see it, is the power of the love between the dead Sean and Anna. I mean,
you never see their relationship.
You never see that. No. You know, you take it because she wouldn't be where she is, driven by 10 years of the life she's lived. Because this happens 10 years after his death, right? She wouldn't be driven by that unless it had this unbelievable, I mean, I almost wanted to know what was so amazing about this love, other than it controlled her.
But that's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, you never, I mean, what is it? Why do you become, you know, madly in love, passionately in love with one person and not somebody else? And, I mean...
Does this happen once in a lifetime, or does it happen 5 times in a lifetime?
Here it is, this is what I want, this is who I'm going to choose. It doesn't. How many times does it happen? I have no Maybe once.
Maybe once, yeah.
once.
If you're lucky once.
Yeah, if
You know?
yeah.
If you're lucky once. Don't you think?
Yeah. Is it lucky or unlucky?
Better
Sorry.
question. No, better question. It's-
You know, because the more you give, the more you have to lose. So
Yeah.
I'd still prefer to give. Yeah,
I would
I'd
too.
still prefer
Yeah.
to sort of walk the that precarious.
You prefer to
tightrope.
live and suffer rather than to have lived.
Yeah, and I suppose that's also the same when you were asking me about, oh, do you worry about box office and all those things? No, I'd much prefer to sort of walk that very, very fine line where you never quite know when you're going to fall.
And that's how we made it, really.
Yeah,
It was like that the whole way along.
yeah.
What were the risks in which you thought you might fall?
Well, they were constant. They were daily.
Every
Yeah,
day.
Yeah, they haven't finished.
Really?
But I mean, it just felt like it did feel like we were kind of jumping off a cliff and building our wings on the way down. You know, a little bit, really. In other words, not really. It was a free fall. It wasn't conventional. It wasn't dot joining. You know, it was about sensations and emotions and molecules. It was a really hard piece to put together.
How long did it take you?
17 years, I reckon. Feels like
How old are you?
it took me, how long did it take in the end? I mean, I reckon from starting writing to now, it's probably 4 years.
Yeah. Now, I read somewhere you used 3 separate editors on this. What's that about?
Well, there are two different editors. Two different editors. There were 4 editors involved across the year that it took me to cut the film. But there were 2 editors who really cut the film. I think I just burnt them all out one at a time. I think it was a grueling thing. I was finding the film when we wrote it. I was finding it when we shot it. I was finding it when we cut it. I was finding it when we put the sound, the music on it, and so on. It was a very it flowed and changed all the time.
You once said that the directors you choose are philosophers, you know, who want to address questions that interest you, like love and the nature of love and the power of love.
No, I would definitely classify.
This is one of those.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm very drawn to those sort of storytellers, those people that, obviously, you know, in relation to Stanley Kubrick, and then if you look at sort of a number of other people that I've worked with, that tends to be where I flourish.
Why do you think that is?
I think because there's no actual plan. It's more like you're allowed to grow and change and move within a structure rather than it being mapped out. I'm not very good at someone saying, do this, be this, and do it now. I have to feel it.
I think it's because you're a character. Nicole's a character actress, an incredible character actress, and I think some of those jobs.
She has to be because of the role she chooses.
Yeah,
and
she inhabits
mesmerized by character.
Yeah, and I mean that's what directors are looking to explore. You know, is that character, and Nicole can inhabit that.
You once said that the directors you admire, Fellini, Kubrick. See, I assume these are people you'd admire. Kurosawa. Someone else, I forgot who else. That's a nice list, though.
Yeah, not bad.
Nice.
Not a bad
but
start.
they all share what in your judgment, other than brilliance and genius and a series of extraordinary films?
I suppose they are. I suppose all the films are full of questions, as you both just said. You know, they're not. None of them are pretending to give any answers. They're all very. They're reaching for something, I think, and that's what I admire.
This film opens in theaters on October 29th. You're also doing, at some point, producers, yes?
Not till next year, late, sort of middle of next
What's
year.
next?
Yeah.
I know the film with Sean will be coming out, the Sidney Pollack director.
That's next.
That's next.
Yeah, next year.
Have you shot anything else?
When. I'm in the middle of shooting a film called Bewitched, based on the television series, actually.
Yeah.
So, which I watched as a child and which sort of made me wish that I could do magic. So I'm still wishing I could, and it's not working.
You can do magic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to have you. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Nice to meet you.
You too.
Thank you for joining us. See you next time.